Good morning. We are out here in the Laurel Highlands at the Whitetail Trail trailhead, and you can see some information here about the official parking area, wildlife restoration, some game lands regulations that we want to follow. And so Jim and I and our dogs are going to go hiking today, and we want to share some resources with you. So you can get out hiking too. And this is a book we found really helpful, 50 Hikes in Western Pennsylvania. And it's got descriptions as well as descriptions of the trail as well as maps. And we'll be talking about today, or this week I should say, about some of the things that you should have with you, essentials you should have with you, and one of those is definitely a map. So want to definitely introduce this book to you, maybe write it down in your journal. And but for today, before we start hiking, we do want to go over the Leave No Trace principles. So there are 7 principles that we use as we hike, as we camp, as we're out in the wilderness, to make sure we leave the space better than we found it. So we're going to go over those 7 principles here at the trailhead, and then we'll get to hiking. All right, so leave no trace. We're going to go over the 7 principles today, and these are principles or guidelines that we want to think about whenever we are outside enjoying natural areas, right? Whether we're just outside in our backyard or whether we're in the backcountry going on, a multi-week hike of sorts. So Leave No Trace is an official program. You can be certified in this to teach it as well. And why do we do this? Why do we want to leave no trace when we're out in the backcountry or hiking? And we'll talk about that. We'll journal a little bit about that as well. And so one of the reasons for me that leave no trace is so important is because I just enjoy the best part, right, of being outdoors is to enjoy the natural world, and to not see trash, for example, kind of ruins the experience, right? Or making sure I'm being respectful of wildlife, which we'll go over in a moment. So it just makes the experience better for me, right? When I go out with my friends or with my family, leaving no trace better than we found it. Makes my experience better, but it also makes the experience better for other people. So not just people you're with, but people that come after you. And then if we think even bigger picture, right? Because 4-H thinks about the bigger picture, not only ourselves, but other people. We think about future generations. So kids like you are going to become adults that want to be in the outdoors. And then, if you have kids or kids after you, they also want to enjoy the outdoors just like you did. So, so these are some reasons why we really want to think about LNT, or leave no trace. So let's go over a few. The 7 principles. Okay, 1, plan ahead and prepare. And this week we'll go over those 10 to 13 essentials that we want you to have when you go out hiking to keep you safe and having a good time. So you want to make sure that you are prepared for the weather, for any food you might need, for any accidents that might happen. You want to be prepared and plan ahead. Number 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. So what's a durable surface, right? So this gravel here, durable surface. Not going to do much harm to it if I set my tent on it or if I walk across it, right? We also want to travel on established trails. So if I go out here where there's no trail established, I'm stomping on leaves, maybe small animals, and I'm making I'm not leaving no trace, right? I'm making a mark. So travel and camp on durable surfaces, established trails, established campsites. Disposing of your waste properly, okay? So making sure that if you go to the bathroom in the woods, that you know how to dispose of that waste and take care of those materials so you're not leaving a mess, right? So that's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, leave what you find. So it's so exciting, right, to find that really cool rock, or to, find that really cool plant that you just want to take with you and put in your scrapbook or in your journal. Well, what's something different that we could do, right? What's something different that we could do rather than taking that thing that might be a home for another animal or might be part of the ecosystem to keep it healthy? Well, maybe we could take a photo. Some of you that like to draw, maybe you could sketch or draw that. You could keep that picture in your mind, you know, for later if you don't have those tools. But we want to leave what we find that's in the natural environment for others to enjoy as well, and for the plants and animals to kind of have their environmental needs. 5, minimize campfire impacts. So this is a little bit more advanced than we're going to get into this week, but I encourage you, maybe not in this course, but in another course, to learn how to build a campfire and to put it out safely so we minimize the impacts. We all have seen the horrible wildfires that have happened across Australia, California, and in other areas around the world. And if we can minimize our campfire impacts, that makes a huge difference. Respecting wildlife. Lori is our wildlife expert this week, and she's going to be talking a lot about different ways that we enjoy the local wildlife that's around us. We're able to observe and kind of see where they've been and what they're doing and what's the best way for them to exist in their environment. And we want to respect the wildlife when we are hiking out or camping in the woods. So giving them space, right? Giving them staying on those established trails, not feeding wildlife, cleaning up after ourselves. All of the principles before apply here. And Lori will be talking more about how we respect wildlife as we go along. And then being considerate of other visitors. So not just being considerate of the wildlife and the plant life here, but also other visitors around you. So for example, for me, when I go out hiking, I like to hear the natural sounds, right? I don't want to hear a bunch of blasting music, you know, that's maybe not part of the natural environment. So respecting other visitors that are wanting to get out and enjoy the natural world, and kind of minimizing your impacts on how you move, how you talk, the things that you pick up after yourself, all of those things. So in sum, we have 7 leave no trace principles that we want to think about every time we hit the trailhead, before we head out hiking, before we go on that camping trip, before we head out our back door. All right. So as we'll have some journaling activities for you on these 7 principles. There'll be an independent activity for you to do. So I want you to start thinking about, how do I practice leave no trace? Because you're probably already doing some of these things, right? So how am I already practicing these principles? And what are some things that I can do better? Okay, because that's also what 4-H is about, is making ourselves better for our community so we can be of service to ourselves, others, and in the world. So we're ready to get out on the trail, I think, having all of these principles in mind. So thank you so much for joining in, and we'll see you on the trail. All right, so I've got my essentials, all my gear ready, checked it all. We're going to put those leave no trace principles into practice, right? So we found the trailhead, we have our map, we have the blazes here letting us know that we're on this durable surface. This is where we're going to travel, and we're ready to go. So let's go put those L&T principles into practice.